Okay. Right. Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Ashish with my wonderful, lovely guest today. And we are live as always. Some Fridays we have missed because I was busy doing retreat and other things. But this is a Friday live show which happens live. It goes live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram, all of them together. And generally, I have a wonderful practitioner of some kind, natural or otherwise, who is interested in holistic health, who is interested in talking about health in its wider scale and not just only medical health. So today we have got wonderful Maureen Keeley, and I am meeting and talking, going to be talking to Maureen as well online right now, and we're going to have great discussion related to health. So, welcome, Maureen.
Thank you.
Lovely for you to be here. And you will learn about StreamYard also.
Yes. Yeah, this is a new one for me, this platform, but I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to have the invitation.
You're welcome. Thank you. So, to begin with, first, let's find out who you are. What do you do?
It's Maureen Kylie, by the way, but
Kylie.
I'll let you off that one. I'll let you off.
Apologies.
That's fine. It's fine. As long as you don't think I'm an Australian singer, we're fine, because that's the other Kylie that's out there. I can't sing. I can't sing at all, actually. What do I do? I have the privilege of being a clinical hypnotherapist that's worked in the area of fertility for now 24 years. So I have had a lot of experience working with people trying to become pregnant and onwards through pregnancy, thank God, when it works, through to live births, God, and any other factors that happen along the way. I'm passionate, absolutely passionate about my work. I'm lucky because I get up and I work with people. For me to provide them with the tools and the strategies to hopefully get to be a mother or a parent or whatever. And for me, that is the greatest, most extraordinary, fabulous thing that can happen to people. So I am very privileged to be in the position where I can help people to do that and coach. I coach for business as well as for personal relationship stuff. But in the area of natural health and getting people to learn about their mind-body connection, their soul connection, however you want to see it, it's a really important part of my work and who I am. And I've worked in various different careers through my 100 years that I've been on this planet. And I have done lots of different things, but the main theme of everything that I've worked with, I started off as a nursery nurse, and then I went on to train in women's issues and women's sexuality. And I've worked at a women's refuge. I've run a women's refuge. I've all the way through my career, the theme is the empowerment of women and helping women to achieve their goals. And then in my latter part of my career as a fertility therapist, that I'm able to hopefully get them to that wonderful state of holding that baby in their arms.
Yeah. It's wonderful you mentioned that, because that's how I felt when I initially started in gynae, which was now going 30 years back. And I thought, wow, this is the biggest miracle on planet, to be able to build a whole human being. And also I thought, okay, this even as a business model makes sense, because this is one profession which is never going to go out of business. We're always going to have babies. But yes, it is so beautiful to have that, and obviously so damaging when some women can't have it. And it took me a while to understand what is it so important about getting pregnant, because I personally came from that sense that even if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't be worried, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
I had that idea. Now I do have children who are IVF twins, and I am blessed that I do have them. But I didn't come from that understanding
Yeah.
or that experience to say. But it took me a while to understand. In your understanding, why do you think it is so important for women to get pregnant? Apart from, of course, the obvious one.
The
What is
beauty
that?
of it. I think that and it's very culturally bound as well. This, I think we live in a society where women are they're valued for what they produce in terms of children, and I think that's a massive issue. And even when like you're saying yourself, that if you're a so-called career woman, and maybe children were sort of slightly later thought on, or I'll add that to the mix, if you like. The fact of the matter is that we are valued in different cultures, even more so, for having babies, because there's something that's unique, of course, and of course it's all about being immortal. You're not just having a baby for you and your immediate family. This is how you become a grandparent. There is the longevity of it. It's I talk to people who make a very firm choice right from the beginning not to have children, and I always say I admire that, because I don't think society particularly upholds that view. I don't think society will give you many kudos and status for saying that. And in fact, as time goes on, people start to, when the decision is out of their hands, if you like, when their fertility they're past their fertility, that's when I think they start to think, oh gosh, what's the next stage for us? What's the next stage for me as a human being? And it's extremely difficult for women, because women are always, I think, caught in this trap of wanting to identify as an individual and unique person in their own right. And then you may decide to do a career that takes you, your own career, I should imagine, 10, 15 years to get to, I've worked in the NHS as well. So I know how hard doctors work. I know what that hierarchical scale takes, and how much energy and time and, all that it takes, and being able to get to a certain position, particularly as a woman, to then turn around and go, oh, do you know what? I really would like some children. Gosh, I don't know how that didn't happen earlier, but it's very difficult for it to happen earlier when you're in such a hierarchical mode of working. And it's not just in the NHS or in the medical world, it's in the police force if you're a woman. I remember when I did a postgrad course at Suffolk University, and we were doing women's studies. Part of my degree was post-degree was women's studies, and there was a female detective there, and we were, it was one of those. I'm sure you've been on them yourself. One of those, tell your story. What's your personal story as a woman? Yeah, and her story was, and there were only about 12 of us in this group. We all did our bit, and she was right at the end. I'd never forget it. She was right at the end, and she burst into tears straight away. And she said, I've come on this call, she said, because I've got to try and make a decision. And we sort of said, what is that? She said, I've basically been told, the misogyny in this is appalling, but I've basically been told I have two choices. I either stay where I am and stay childless if I want to achieve in this career, or I go off and have a baby and just say goodbye to the ladder that I have climbed so viciously to get here. Yeah. And those were her choices. So I think on the one hand, we value babies and what they can bring to us. And on the other hand, we also value women, staying in their careers and creating that. And there's this constant tension, I think, between what is valued most. And if we want to go for value, let's face it, I don't know of any woman who is actually paid to stay at home and look after her baby. We don't value that at all. There's no monetary value there.
No, yes, you're right. I mean, this is the thing. I think if we want to value children, we have to value the mothers,
Absolutely.
and there is no value or respect for mothers. I mean, I can talk about this so much, even on from a cultural perspective as
Yeah.
well. The things that we do with women and daughter-in-laws in certain
Oh
cultures
yeah.
is because we don't respect them. We want the children, but we forget the mother, and that is everywhere across the board,
Absolutely.
all
I
around the
had
world.
I had my children very young. I was a young mum. I got married at 20. I had my first child at 22, and I remember the and I wanted my children very. In fact, at that age, talk about fertility journeys. I waited a whole year to fall pregnant at that age,
Wow.
and I was quite good at having sex. So I mean, I don't know why that happened, but
Yeah.
it didn't. It just didn't happen to me for a whole year, and that was a shock to me, especially as a nursery nurse looking after other people's children. There was that horror of I'm doing this, and yet I won't have my own. So I mean, from that early age, even I thought that. But I remember distinctly, I had this baby. I mean, this fabulous child. Uh, it was the most glorious moment, and that's the moment I want every woman to feel, and their partners, whatever. But that moment of that baby, 8 pound 4 and 52 centimeters long, in my arms, was the most extraordinary experience of my life. So fast forward for 3 months or so. Oh, and by the way, I went back to work after 4 months because
Great.
I was paid a certain amount of money, and I only was allowed. If I didn't go back after that time, I wouldn't have been. I'd have to pay it back. I can't remember the
Great.
name of it now, but it was one of those ideas. Anyway, but I remember walking with him in the pram, proudly walking down. I used to live in North Kensington, and I was walking down, and I was there, and I'm beaming, and I've got this baby, and there he is, and oh my God, I'm a miracle maker. I did this. This human beings, all mine. Obviously, nobody else had anything to do with this baby. I was very precious about him. And then I walked back from the shops, and I got back, and we lived in a flat, and of course, I had a silly pram, no lift, and silly, but absolutely what I wanted. And then the next day I did the same thing, and the next day I did the same thing. And I think it took about a month or so, maybe two, to realize how isolated I was. I was extremely lonely. And
Yeah.
I had my family, and I come from an Irish Catholic background, so there's plenty of us. But nonetheless, there was that sense of, oh my goodness, I'm on my own. And this is it. And
Yeah.
I didn't have the NCT, that sort of groups that you see these days, and I'm always pleased that when people they have friends and they make friends around that time. I think it's
Yeah.
fabulous. But I remember the isolation, and I also remember the fact that I didn't feel that I was contributing anything. How
Mm.
awful! There is me having just had this glorious miracle boy, and yet I didn't feel very valuable. There's
Yeah.
that contradiction all the time.
I think this is interesting paradox, because even though we are valuing women as a workforce, but we are not then valuing as mothers. So,
No,
uh, but it's not a choice,
no,
as a woman, you don't have a choice, because that's your biological need, as well as
it's
biology is such that I'm pretty sure that if men had the choice, some of them would take on that choice, to produce children, but they can't. So it's women's biology is just built that way. Nature has given them this gift that they have to do this. But then if you are valuing them as a workforce, and I think that's what has happened with the industrialization, because we wanted then women to work, then with the wars and stuff where they had to go and work, and then the motherhood somehow got the flack. It's like it's the hardest job on the planet, uh,
absolutely
and you are
100%.
constantly on your toes all the time. I remember, because I have got twins, from IVF twins, and up until they were 5 years old, my thing was, where is one? Where's the other one? Where is one?
Yeah,
Where's the other one? I just
yeah,
used to do all the time. And you are so right. It's like 5 days later or a week later, everybody's gone to work, and I
yes.
am in the
Stuck.
house with two
Yeah,
kids on my own. And I'm thinking, and I'm a very capable person, I'm a
Yes.
practitioner, and all of that is there, and midwife comes once a week or somebody else comes once
Yeah.
a week. But like you, with the single child, there is still a possibility you can go out, but it
Yes.
is still dependent on so many factors. You need your health, you need baby's health to be 100% so that you can actually go out,
Yeah.
which means you don't have that choice, more or less, because how do I take two of them while I am recovering from a C-section?
Yes.
It is just, and that is something that I think it's overall, as a society, we need to raise that standard for women, where we value them as mothers,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and that's what we see, the reflections of it everywhere. If it's in during divorces, during separations, how then mothers lose out because we don't respect
Yes.
what they're doing.
That's right. I agree. And and even in the medical world, I'm always fascinated. I had a patient who was coming to see me, who was seeing, not at the clinic I was working at. She was seeing a private fertility doctor and what have you. And she had had IVF, and she'd had 8 embryos. Yeah. And she was coming to see me for the psychological, support, and the visualizations and stuff that I do, which I'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But she was coming to see me, and she came in this day, and she'd had an embryo transferred, and it had not worked. And we went through that, and how I counselled her, and gave her means by which to move forward. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Anyway, sure enough, she came along a couple of months later for the next embryo, and she did that 3 or 4 times, okay? And it didn't work. So when she came back to me on the 4th occasion, I said, look, I'm really concerned about, your mental, emotional health here, because this constant failure, this constant rejection, which is what it is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and having to try and get over that. It's like climbing up, it's like Sisyphus. It's like climbing up that mountain and then just watching your life roll away and getting back up and pushing that boulder up again. This is killing you. This is killing your very soul and your spirit. And I'm deeply concerned about that. And you know what she said to me, Ashish? She said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I'm concerned about, if you like, colluding with this. I don't want to carry on. I want to help you. Please God in heaven, I want to help you. But I'm really concerned about you. Have you gone back to the doctor? Have you said, can we look at other things? Is there a possibility I might need a fresh cycle? Can maybe we, whatever. What could we do differently? Because this, 4 times hasn't worked. And she turned around to me and she said, I did speak to him. And he said to me, look, it's a numbers game. We just keep going. Until we get to the end. And I said, with no regard for what that does to you psychologically. No regard whatsoever. But you know what she did, Ashish? She didn't come back to me, because she didn't want to hear, you need to change, you need to go somewhere else, this isn't working for you. She didn't want that advice, because women find themselves in this cycle of, no, it will come good, and I will trust. And that misogyny of, come on, let's go again, let's go for another one. Appalling.
I started kind of this work, especially what I'm doing right now. I mean, I started gynae and obs, as I said, 30 years ago. While I was studying, I was working and, learning. And that's what I wanted to open a clinic in India and all sorts. Yeah. But it's just when I had my twins, which happened after 10 years of our marriage, and we were ready to adopt as well. We started adoption process also, which is also something that I wanted to do independently. It's got nothing to do with the fact that we were getting later, in this. And then my husband said, why don't we do IVF? I said, okay, if this is our destiny, 1 cycle, that's my limit. Okay. And as well as, all the natural stuff, I was doing herbs, I was doing yoga daily, and I'm a fully healthy person. So it worked for me. It worked first time, which is not even 1% of the people with twins, full term
No,
pregnancy, you know. And then I started going to twins and triplet club. I used to take my twins there when they were started to walk. And that's when I started hearing hush hush noises about somebody who had 7 cycles,
yeah,
8 cycles of IVF. I was horrified. I was literally horrified. And I thought, this doesn't make sense. You
no.
know, why are we not doing anything natural? Why are we not preparing these women? And I'm still asking that question, I think 16
I
years,
know,
17
I
years
know,
later.
I know.
Rather, it's even worse now because in my time there were less chemical, there were less hormones. Now there are more chemical, there are more hormones, there are immunosuppressant drugs, there are all sorts of things that women are going through. It is mind boggling to realize, to see that women never ask this question to themselves: what am I doing to myself?
I
You know,
know. Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're right, because you've shown her the mirror and she didn't want to hear it, because right now she's on that wheel of,
That
I want to get
treadmill.
pregnant,
Yeah,
let's go, let's go, let's go. And medical doctors, it is shocking,
yeah,
actually. For example, I have given, I talk so much about it, and I also share, kind of invite doctors also. And my
yeah.
my logic to them is, you're going to get a good case study because you're going to have lesser cycles, your patient's going to get pregnant faster. There's just no brainer of using natural
Yes.
medicine with your work, or using hypnotherapy with your work, but they just don't seem to see it.
I wonder if it's because there's no kudos in it. You know, there's this idea, and it's targets, it's results driven, it's how many, the best of the best, and that's
Yeah,
fantastic for when it works. And one of the things people say to me is, oh, in part of what do you do? And I say, oh well, they'll say something like, oh, I've heard you've got to be positive. If you're not positive, it won't work. Yeah. And I think that mentality, don't get me wrong, positivity is fabulous. It's absolutely amazing if you can hold on to it. If
yeah,
you can hold on to it in the face of the reality of miscarriages, failed cycles, all the things that can go wrong even once,
yeah,
you've actually got through a pregnancy, or the testing that you've got to go through, and all that psychological damage. And I think that this, there's this sort of magical realism or manifesting that goes on. And, I'm a little, I get a little skeptical about that, because I say that's great if you can maintain it. But I'm all about realism. My work, yeah, doesn't actually add more pressure to you, because the pressure of positivity is another stick for women to beat themselves with. I wasn't positive enough. Maybe that's why it didn't work. And I
yeah,
go, oh dear God in heaven, really? Yeah. It drives me insane. I always opt for optimism. I think that optimism is a totally attainable state, but this livid positivity, toxic positivity, I call it, where it's back down. And that's the thing, it's back down to the individual, Ashish. Yeah.
yeah,
And when that individual presents a IVF review when it hasn't worked, there's always that sort of element of, well, we'll have to have another little go, and we'll tweak this and we'll tweak that. But the woman walks out of that review, it's me. I've done.
yeah,
I didn't do something. It's something I did wrong. I didn't do enough of this. I didn't do enough of that. I know, I'll do this. The times that people have come to see me and said, I've done everything, but somebody said you're good, so I'm coming to see you. Very complimentary, I might add.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? So, but the point is that they will try everything and anything to get into that state. And we're not looking for the woman's mind. We're not looking for her body either. Let's just go harder. Let's go stronger. Let's see if we can, let's not wait too long before we start pumping the drugs in again.
Yeah,
Let's keep going, because we haven't got time, because the biological clock's not on our side. It's
yeah.
but it's the constant onus of responsibility being put back to the woman.
You're right. You're right. Actually, I mean, every single time I told somebody is talking to me, and it's like, I've done all my tests, and I'm like, okay, so where's the husband's test?
Yes,
Where's the partner's?
100%. Yeah.
I mean, I think, and you're right, we are putting too much pressure and onus on the women, where we know 50% of that sperm is going to come from, 50% of that embryo is going to come from the sperm quality.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
nobody is talking about the sperm health. Nobody does any work with men. Men themselves don't do any work. I mean, they don't even come forward. But it's the fact that women always take this on themselves. It's like, it's my responsibility now. I have to keep doing everything under the sun, which, yes, I mean,
yeah, of course, there's an element.
You have that gift, and that's how you have to have the burden of it as well, in a way. But I always say that, why are we not doing things with men? And there is so much in natural medicine. I can almost guarantee, if there are some sperms, I can guarantee we can double it in 3 months or even more. But no men are working on that, and no women, no doctor is interested. As long as we have one sperm, we'll do ICSI. But you will do ICSI, but what about the woman's health? Nobody is talking about the women's health. And ICSI is not a miracle cure either.
No, absolutely not. I was asked to see a few of the men involved in the situation. What was fascinating as well is how often, when a man discovers, no disrespect to men in general, but honestly, sometimes it's just a bit too much. When they discover that their sperm count is low, or sometimes not there or whatever, they're horrified, absolutely horrified. And I've been to somebody's been referred to me for counselling or what have you, and they're devastated by it, utterly devastated. Now I get the psychology, there's the whole thing about that's the manly thing, the sperm makes the child and the rest of it, and yet women are expected to have, let's see, speculums, they've had to have scans, they've had to have their bloods taken 4 million times, they've had the amount of things that women are that are done to women, and a man has to produce a little specimen and is utterly devastated if the result isn't that he's Superman. I kid you not. I've even had somebody, who shall remain nameless, of course,
yes,
whose wife went through the whole of the shebang of IVF and what that entails psychologically, emotionally, physically, the whole thing, her very soul being eaten alive. And he had to turn up, of course, on the day to do his part, and he didn't. He just didn't turn up.
Oh my God.
I mean, and then she came back.
Because it's so ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous.
She came back through the clinic a second time, having bizarrely not divorced him, as far as I'm concerned, but they we were different people. And he came back through the process, and he had to have counselling. And he said that he found it, and I'll quote here, he found it increasingly difficult for the pressure that he was under to perform this task. Yeah. And he therefore felt it was incumbent upon him to be honest about the fact that he felt totally pressured and couldn't actually perform on the day. Yeah. And here's the thing. I was not that sympathetic. You can imagine, can't you? And I gave him a little, pep talk. And then off he went. And she carried on, and she went and all the rest of it. And he turned up on the day and then didn't perform again. Second time. So for me, that sort of, this idea that men,
he needed a kick in the
Yes, he did, indeed. Unfortunately, he ran a bit faster than me. No, I didn't do that, I promise. So I mean, it's so hard for women. It really is. And they will push themselves, and they will push themselves through all sorts of indignities and all sorts of, they listen and they say, oh, well, the doctor must know. The doctor must know what's right, and the doctor will tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the other pressure is the CEO of her own company, the lawyer, top of her partnership, and she's going to go in and she's going to do everything. She's done everything. She's done everything. She's done the diet. She's done this. She's done acupuncture. She's done the whole shebang. She's done everything, and then it doesn't work. And that sends that sort of AA type crazy.
It is.
Because the control, they cannot bear the lack of control because they've done everything. They've done everything to the hilt.
I have had patients in Harley Street, and I'm sitting across the lady, and she said to me, I haven't even got the time to come for the therapies. And also the fact that her husband, she said, my husband, so they had one failed IVF. And I said, you can come for therapies. And she said, I haven't got the time. And I am thinking in my head, how are you going to make time for the baby? And also she said, my husband can't believe that IVF didn't work. And I am sitting there thinking, I think this is also IVF in a way, and I don't know why that is, has given this kind of sense of entitlement that, this is IVF and it is going to work. IVF success rate is only 30%, at best 35%. Just imagine spending 10,000, 15,000 for a treatment, which is 70% failed. Fails 70% of the time because we are not preparing women or men, we're not doing anything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
it's fascinating, isn't it?
That's what women are coming with. And I think women are just, I don't know if I want to use that word, being really stupid and shooting themselves in the foot with this whole scenario about only because we have a technology which was supposed to be for those women who don't have tubes or their tubes get, damaged. That's why we had test tube babies.
Exactly.
We had IVF. But IVF doesn't mean it's an option for everybody.
No.
Or that it becomes a choice in terms of your timeline, that now my career is all set. And I've seen so many of those couples where they're 40 now. Everything is all golden, apart from the fact that now they can't conceive.
But I think that part of the problem is the medical establishment that, let's be honest, made massive amounts of money out of this shop for a child mentality, I call it. You can, and I've worked with a few celebrities in my time, and what's fascinating for me is how often they will, my famous story is I was sitting in the hairdressers, because I'm not gifted with natural brown hair at this stage of my life. I was sitting in the hairdressers, so I opened up the Hello magazine. I've got the hairdresser talking to me, and there in the magazine is one of my former patients, talking with this baby in her arms about how it'd been a gift from God. It'd been a gift from God. And here she was, her family's complete, she's in her 40s, early 40s, gift from God and all the rest of it. And I'm looking at this article, I was furious, Ashish, absolutely furious. That wasn't a gift from God, that was a gift from a very good IVF doctor that I sent her to after she would not admit that her natural eggs were not, they weren't helping. She was having miscarriage after miscarriage. And I was saying, you need to get over your ego and get yourself into a good doctor who is going to help you. Yeah. And I've actually got a text message from this person saying, thank God for you that you pointed me in the right direction. And I was quite brutal. Get over your ego. Go and get some help. And she said, and here he is in my arms. Yeah. But that didn't come out in the article, Ashish. Oh, no. It was a gift from God. No, it wasn't. It was medical intervention. It was therapeutic intervention. And it was a lot of people that got her there. But anybody opening that magazine would think, I could have a baby at 43. Look at that. I could have a baby at that age. Of course I can. Now women do. And I have got testimonials from people that I've worked with natural pregnancies around those ages.
Yeah.
They're there. Of course they are. But this woman wasn't giving the right impression. This celebrity didn't want people to think that she was just like the rest of us. That, those of us with vaginas were going into and having to get extra help. Somehow that celebrity status was why she was now with this baby in her arms. And it's just rubbish. And so much is put out there, you know, for women to believe that they've got that time. You know, I'm dreadful. I go to parties or you know, I'm out of things. And the first thing I say to a young woman is, how old are you? And they think I'm incredibly nosy. And I say, and they say, oh, I'm 31. And I say, okay, have you thought about getting pregnant? And they think I'm peculiar. I know they do. And they say, well, no, not yet. You know, we've got to buy the house and we're going to do this and we've got to do that. And we've got to do that. I said, please don't wait too long, because that waiting can turn into double. Because if it doesn't work, you're double. And I was a 20-year-old, who waited a year. You know, come on. This, you know, lifestyle, your diet, the supplements you take, the herbs you take, you know, we don't live in a very free world in terms of the atmosphere. There's a lot of free radicals out there. There's a lot of stuff in our environment, in our food. You've got to be up there and you've got to take notice of that. And
I think, yes, I think I'm becoming like you as well, because similar thing I'm thinking about even my kids. I mean, they're only 16 right now. But I the way you and I, because we know too much about the inside, what is happening to women and women's health overall.
That's right.
And then you are getting pregnant. I wouldn't say later in life, but whatever age you are getting pregnant, 44, like one of my patients is pregnant now at 44, right?
Thank
Natural
God.
pregnancy and all of this.
Fabulous.
Which is wonderful. But then all these women who are then getting pregnant in late 40s, straight you're going into menopause. And with all the hormones that you are using for IVF, and then going to cause you havoc while going through menopause and having an impact later on your postmenopausal life. Nobody is thinking about that. Nobody is even talking about that whole thing.
But I think that's actually, I think it's because we are living in a very immediate world. We live in a fast, quick Instagram. You know, we're using this medium.
Life is not Instagram or TikTok, you know.
And so we don't want to know about the future. We're terrified of what it might bring. But let's not analyze it. And again, women are being encouraged not to analyze. Women are being encouraged to just go through the motions blindfolded and just take on board what they can. And I don't blame them on some levels, because what's the alternative? There are very few alternatives. You and I are an alternative in terms of natural fertility, but there's not great lobby for fertility that's natural.
No. It isn't. So, also, you know, you and I are part of private care, which is expensive, right? So not everybody can afford. I would love to be on the NHS, that you and I on the NHS and advising every single patient. I mean, just imagine the kind of change it will bring. But it is not, you know, not everybody can avail this service, even if they want to.
No, that's the problem. And the thing is that we need to sort of be cognizant of that in a way. But I mean, I saw your post just before we came on live about, and I've had this before with people saying, oh, I've got three free cycles on the NHS for IVF. And I, like you, I saw that and I smiled. I said, they're not free. They are not free.
No.
Like you said about insurance and tax and all the rest of it. But for me, the thing I say is the emotional and psychological cost of those 3 cycles that are generic. You may as well have go to Sainsbury's and be on a conveyor belt, because there's no.
I agree with you, because the kind of IVF that they offer on the NHS is very low quality. And because of that, they are offering 3 cycles. You might as well don't use that, because it's like, you know, getting low quality supplement. You might as well not use it, because it's not really going to help. And that is why it is. I mean, initially when I heard this, again, I heard 15 years ago, 3 to 5 cycles is what doctors recommend. It's like your body is getting used to the hormones. What the heck? Seriously? No, it is not correct that your body is getting used to.
Absolutely. It's disgraceful, isn't it?
It is disgraceful.
And I said, again, it's the woman being treated like an incubator. You know, just going through it, because it's free. It's, you know, the cost to you as a person with the health, your mental health. So one of the things that I do when people come to me, I'll explain a bit about what hypnotherapy can do now. Yeah. So one of the things is when they come in and they sit down, and I loved your thing where you talk about what actually happens in the consultation. I'd like to do that now, because I think there's so many misguided ideas about what hypnotherapy is. Okay, so you're coming to me, Ashish is coming to me, and she wants to see me as a hypnotherapist. So the first thing I do is I take all the details down of where you are in your fertility journey, whether it's natural, whether it's IVF, whatever. I take all those details down. And then I would talk to you about what would happen in a hypnotherapeutic session. And I'll explain that in a second. The aim of the hypnotherapeutic session is to, in a way, give your mind a sort of emotional shower, and also to create a sense of safety. And then we go into the more poetic stuff of the fertility garden or the control room, visualizations, which impact the mind. Okay, they impact the mind from a positive, suggestive arena. And the reason why we know that works is because of how people feel afterwards. And my aim in that session, particularly people who've spent 2 years trying to get pregnant, or have 2 failed cycles, or, you know, have just had 2 miscarriages, whatever it is, I try to get back to that state of optimism. You know, the first few times, the first few months when you're trying to get pregnant, when you've got that gorgeous, naive hopefulness, you know, and you're dancing through golden flowers, and you can see the pram, and you can, you know, the whole thing, those glorious times before you know that it may not go that way. So by the time they get to me, for whatever reason, I call it emotional plaque. It's built up, this grittedness, this physical sort of chloralization, if you like, of the body and the mind, where it's basically gritted teeth and just hoping it will happen. And in that gritted teeth mentality, it goes all the way through the body, through the mind, through the body, through the soul. And they're just gritting their teeth on this upward journey. And my role is to try and take them back to that glorious early stages of optimism, those early lovely moments where you could be pregnant, not the ones where they've looked at a pregnancy stick and it says negative. So I have a lot to undo. I have a lot of work to undo. I have to chip away at this to get them back to that state. And it's always done with realism. Some of the therapies I use are ACT, acceptance commitment therapy. I use strategic focus therapy. There's lots of different things. I've done lots of different stuff. So I combine it into this protocol that I have, which allows me to uniquely tailor it to the person, to the individual, so that they have their own program, if you like, based on their experience, based on what they bring to the table, if you like. But the actual session, I would then get you to lie down. I haven't got a watch, I promise. I have, but I don't use it to swing around in front of people's faces. I get them to lie down, and I do a deep relaxation, which is countdown and what have you, so that the mind and body are receptive. Now, in the first session, because it's like anything new, you might not feel that you're going very far, or you're not going to go into a deep state of trance. But actually, the more you do it, the more your body relaxes. Your subconscious goes, oh, I like this stuff. Let's go for this again. Then you are going to be more and more relaxed as you go through. But the idea is that if you relax the mind, if you relax the body, the mind can take on all these suggestions. And unlike things like meditation and mindfulness, it isn't required that you push the thoughts away and you're there in this Zen-like state. On the contrary, it's really good for busy-minded people. And I've yet to meet too many laid-back people trying to get pregnant by that stage. So
no, because we only get them on the other side, right?
That's right. Authentic. the busy-minded people can use hypnotherapy because the mind is active. It's trying to take on the suggestions. It's trying to work with this visualization, these strategies, these exercises.
Yeah.
The beauty is that the body is completely relaxed. And when the body is completely relaxed, there's this glorious moment of possibility of serenity. That's the only way to describe it. It's like, oh my gosh, I feel better.
Yeah.
I feel better. That's what makes hypnotherapy so extraordinarily strategic.
Yeah.
And you actually get up and feel better. Now, that's different to lots of other things, acupuncture and all those sort of things. You actually feel better from the inside out.
Yeah.
And the minute we start to feel that hopefulness again, the minute we start to feel change, I feel different, then you open your mind to the other possibilities. And that is the most exciting part, that you can think, oh my God, if this bit works, what if that last bit could work that she talked about? What about if this could really be different? And when people say, come on, how does that work? How do you change somebody's feeling genuinely?
Yeah.
And I say, so there's a very simple way of discerning whether this works or not. If you're in your car, you're at home, and a song comes on the radio, and that song throws you back to a time when you were gloriously single, young and beautiful, and you were dancing, and the night was young and the possibilities were there. You are immediately transported back, and you are immediately, your body's zinging, all the cells are going, yeah, I remember that, I felt good. Yeah. 3 minutes later, you can hear a song that can spin you back to a time of grief or loss or pain, and you go, ooh.
Yeah.
Your body reacts to that. The cells in your body react to that. So you do and can make changes. But when people try to think themselves positive, it's not enough. You need to make cellular change. And that's what hypnotherapy can provide.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love hypnotherapy. I'm trained as well, not clinical.
How are you?
But yes, and I also use yoga nidra and all of that in my practice as well. It's just fascinating. And that I agree with you. It's the positivity by itself does not work. You have to
No.
do a lot of work to be able to be positive when you are actually knocked down. That's the point. You need to be
Absolutely.
positive,
Yeah.
right? When everything is working for you, anybody can be positive. It's when nothing is working for you, how do you stay in the face of that? And like you, I'm very realistic. I'm not giving false hope, but
no.
like you and I, we are trying to do the inner work. And that's the problem, because most people are not doing the inner work. It's like, okay, do the affirmations. It doesn't work just doing the affirmations if you are not doing the internal work, if you're not changing your basic perspective about life. And this is something like having a bath every day. You have to have hypnotherapy session every day so that you can be in that mindset, which then eventually, slowly, it clicks,
Yeah, exactly. And I teach people on the first session. I do a lot of work on the first session. I'm not like other hypnotherapists, but I've been doing this a long time. So, I know what works, yeah? But I teach self-hypnosis on that first session because one of the things I want people to be able to do is to take away those exercises, those strategies, when they wake up and they think, it's all very well for an hour in a consulting room, but what happens at 3 o'clock? When I wake up and I think, oh my God, what am my eggs going to be okay? What that AMH score? My God, Oh yeah, it all floods in, doesn't it? Around that time, that's when I say, lie down. See yourself going down a beautiful staircase, and when you reach the bottom, fly off to your beach. Fly off to your beach, and listen to the sound of the sea. And they're gone. That's what I do. Yeah. And
Actually,
they've got it as a takeaway.
the beach thing, it's also one of my favorites. That's why I'm just smiling. But no, I totally agree with you. And we record sessions as well when we are doing visualizations and chanting and everything. And then they can keep listening to those sessions.
Perfect.
You know,
Perfect.
and with my longer programs, people who do 3 months, then we do every week, we do a session, because you need that support weekly. Actually, you need that support daily, but at least weekly
Yeah.
is there. Even 10-15 minutes, we do some work. And every time you're knocked out, because I hear this from patients as well, it's like, no, I needed this boost, because you need to be in that space again where you can be
Yes.
hopeful again, like what you do with your work. I absolutely love hypnotherapy, which is why I trained in NLP and hypnotherapy, because you know how we can use it, and then yoga has its own part to
Yes.
how we can use it. But this is where we make a deeper change, which is
Yes.
required. And in a way, it is about relaxing, but not
Oh,
relaxing
yes.
in a way how everybody else is saying to you, watch and go on a holiday and watch Netflix. That's not relaxation. Relaxation is when your cells feel relaxed internally, deeply. you know
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the kind of relaxation which can only happen how you are describing it, and how I.
Therapeutically.
Yeah.
Yes. Therapeutically. And
Yes.
the other thing is that it's about being that the feeling being genuine. This
Yeah.
people come away from my one of my sessions, and this is not me selling. This is just a fact. They look younger.
Oh,
Now,
yes.
if only I could bottle it. I mean, for God's sake, I'd make a fortune. But they look, because they are relaxed, and it's, let's face it, it's no coincidence. It's not a coincidence when people have been trying for years and years, and it hasn't worked for them, and they decide that's it, gonna give up. That let's close the door. I help people to close the door as well. That's another thing I do. But
Great.
they give up and they walk away from the fertility journey. It's not a coincidence they fall pregnant 6 months later.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's our bodies going, oh, okay, all right. So whew, we're off that particular treadmill. We're off that mountain. Let's relax.
Yeah.
That's why hypnotherapy is so important, because it helps us to access that true, genuine, relaxed state that the body needs,
Yeah.
that the body's screaming for, instead of the Olympic fertility race that a lot of people are on.
I
Yeah.
think it's also, one of my consultant friends, he said to me, the only thing he said is to manage their expectations and to relax them. Because you can imagine what happens with, as we are talking about with IVF, there is no way one can relax with that whole thing about being on and on and on about something. You can't relax like that, but it is the true and internal feeling where you actually can feel without
Yeah, the
somebody asking
difference.
you to relax, you know?
Yeah, you can feel the difference. I mean, one of the sort of infamous clinics in Wimpole Street, I saw one of their protocols the other day, and it was, if you are whatever, you have to be available half an hour after any blood test has been taken. Do not leave the area. Do not leave the area. How tense making is that? That you give up 2 weeks while you go through this and don't go home because you might have to come back again. You might have to come back again. I mean, it's at
Yeah.
what point are we going to realize that? How can that lead to a lovely, relaxed, natural pregnancy? Well, that's not going to lead to a natural pregnancy anyway, but
No.
the whole thing is about the body being readied for it. And that is the antithesis of that, is this tension everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you are doing a great job, and I'm doing a great job in in supporting those women, and
Yeah.
also raising this education and awareness about, because I think doctors are equally to be blamed, as well as patients are equally to be blamed, because women think that it is the golden treatment, that as long as I have all the money in the world, I can go and just buy IVF treatment and then get
And then
pregnant,
it'll work. Yeah.
which we know is not the case. You can have all the money. And I also feel, you work so hard for 10-15 years, you set your career, whatever millions you have
Yeah.
earned, now you are spending those millions on having these babies. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
Where's the mind of that? It's just mind-boggling. But this whole thing is so lopsided, and I think I have had discussions with some good medical doctors,
Yeah,
who are very concerned about this whole thing, the whole medicalization, even not just of IVF, but also of menopause, what is happening
yeah.
around menopause and after menopause. So I think we really, you and I, and people like us who are in this space of natural and alternative and complementary stuff that we are doing, and actually, this is not alternative, this is the.
Yeah, that's it. I'm always slightly offended by the term complementaries. It's not alternative or complementary. It really should be much more mainstream.
It is absolutely. I mean, yes, and so that's where I think it's patients also need to understand how they can use some of this stuff, and rather this is where they should start from. I
You know
have.
what? Let's say one other thing.
Yes.
What if seeing Dr. Ashish Paul or seeing Maureen Kylie for the fees that we charge, which are nowhere near the fees that an IVF cycle would be,
Yeah.
what if that worked? And that's what I base my work on. What if it worked? What if that amount of money to me, you, and any other alternative practitioner, what if it worked? What would that save you?
Well, it does work, and it saves them health. It's preserving,
Yes.
protecting their health, mental health, as well
Yeah.
as the pregnancy will be healthy, baby will be healthy. Plus, you have a different perspective and mindset for life, right? Because this is, they're not having session with you. All the skills that they are learning right now with you or with me is for life. It's not just
Yeah,
for.
that's right. That's exactly right. And that's one of the parts of my protocol. I give them a therapist on their shoulder for life. It's a few strategies that they can use, not just through now, not
Yeah.
just through having babies and all the rest of it, but actually how they can feed their soul for the rest of their lives and give themselves what they need in terms of,
Yeah.
relaxation and calm and serenity. And I think that's really important. And the other thing is that very often when people are struggling, they just need sometimes somebody to hear them, to listen to their fears and their doubts and their worries. And they don't always get that from their family and friends. And sometimes they need to come and see somebody like you and I, where they can be totally honest, where they can say, I'm doing all of this and I'm terrified. I'm terrified that sometimes they're terrified it's going to work.
Yeah, that as well, equally. Yes, absolutely. And I think this is, and that is one of the reasons why I'm doing this show as well. It's about putting our word in front of people,
Yeah.
putting our information, because it is not known at all. I think, I mean, so many patients have said to me, why don't more people know about this? And I'm like, go and tell people, now it
Yes.
is your job that you have experienced this. Go and talk to other people, recommend people,
Yeah.
because people don't know that there is some kind of natural medicine or hypnotherapy, or that they need this kind of work which can actually support them so much. It just really is frustrating to see
Yeah.
when you see
Yes.
patients going through this, and how they are damaging their health. And it's no fault of them, generally not their fault, because that is what they have led to believe, that this is the path they need to go down.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that is why we are talking about this, open, candid conversation, so that women can hear this, and practitioners can hear this, doctors can
Yes.
hear this,
Yes.
and
Exactly.
we do this work with more patients, and more women come through to us, so
Yeah.
that, and you're right, we we are not charging enough. Even if we are charging enough, good for them, because they're still protecting and preserving their health.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, this has been wonderful, and time has just flown by, I think. uh,
Hasn't it? Goodness me. Talking for England here. We are indeed. It's been lovely, Ashley. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And I do hope that maybe we can sort of start shouting louder, because I think that's what we need to do.
we will we are doing it, and we're going to continue this Friday as well. And you can come back. We can talk more because we
Perfect.
need to talk more and more and tell people that we do this so that they get more support as well. Because I'm more worried for women than they are for themselves. I think you and I are
Yes.
more worried for them, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
thank you for your time, and
You're
it's
most welcome. You're most
lovely,
welcome.
lovely.
And we've got lovely sunny weather out there, so we should actually be getting out in it. Not
Yes.
me, though. I've got Irish skin. I put hats and everything on. I don't do it.
Oh, great, Maureen. Thank you so much, and
Thank
have a
you.
wonderful weekend. Bye
And
bye.
you. Goodbye, everyone. Take care. Take care.